Long before we learned the word secularism in our civics class, we practiced it in our streets and schools, in our ports and marketplaces, in our everyday friendships. In the state, difference is not something we merely tolerate. It is something we have learned to live alongside with pleasure. Because we know that the moment faith becomes a tool of power, society begins to tear, as history has proven across space and time. So, Kerala's secularism ensures that society keeps its humane closeness to one another. And that is why consultation matters so much to us, because listening across difference is the daily maintenance work of a plural society. And that is the real Kerala story. It is also administrative routine and civic muscle memory, not by accident, but by design. The state has long run on a discipline of periodic district and state level reviews of the communal situation, with district magistrates explicitly tasked with keeping harmony steady, not as an occasional firefighting exercise, but as continuous prevention. And our history lesson is almost a civics lesson in pluralism. Kerala has a proud singular privilege of having the oldest synagogue in India, the oldest church in India, and the oldest mosque in India, reminding us that coexistence here is not a slogan, it is a heritage. Swami Vivekananda once looked at the social cruelties of his time and called this land a lunatic asylum. We have traveled a long distance since then into a Kerala that is India's first digitally literate state and has eliminated extreme poverty. So, God's own country is not just a tourism tagline here. At our best, it is an ethical ambition to make public life fair and private faith free. And then comes our favorite phrase for Kerala's best habit, which is government by discussion. In some places, discussion is treated like delay. In Kerala, discussion is treated like due process, sometimes noisy, often emotional, but always civilizing. So it is fitting that our closing session places a democracy on stage itself, a conversation across power, law, ideas, facts, and stories. If someone asked what consultation looks like, this is a good picture. May I now get on to my duties of welcoming the guests? We are extremely honored by the presence of our visionary Chief Minister. The Honorable Chief Minister, Sri Pinarayi Vijayan's commitment to Kerala's achievements carries a deeper message that governance is not only about speed, it is also about direction. And that direction must be towards dignity. Sir, we are honored by your presence and leadership, and I extend a very warm welcome to you. Let me also welcome the Honorable Minister of Finance, Mr. Balagopal, to this function. Let me welcome the Minister for Local Self-Government, Mr. M.B. Rajesh. Let me welcome the Vice Chairman of the State Planning Board, Mr. V.K. Ramachandran, and the Principal Secretary, Planning, Dr. Sharmila Mary Joseph. We are honored today by the presence of our chief guest, Dr. Farooq Abdullah. Sir, we welcome you with great warmth. He's on his way. So, Madam Kanimozhi Karunanidhi, who is joining us online, a very warm welcome to you. You represent a tradition where language is not merely communication. It is identity, dignity, and political imagination. And along our southern coast, we understand that instinct deeply. Our histories are shared, our cultures have conversed for centuries, and our democracies become healthier when they learn from each other's arguments. Your presence strengthens today's theme because secularism and consultation are ultimately about making space for difference, for voice, for the vulnerable, and for the women to speak without being invited to speak. Justice A.P. Shah, we are very honored to welcome you. In any democracy, the most reassuring sound is not applause. It is a quiet certainty that power has limits and that rights have meaning. Kerala's public life has long depended on that equilibrium. Strong participation, strong institutions, and the belief that fairness must survive even when politics gets loud. Your presence brings that constitutional wisdom into a final conversation, reminding us that consultative government is not simply a style, but a discipline. Sri Prakash Karat, a very warm welcome. Your public life has been shaped by the insistence that democracy must answer to the everyday wages, work, dignity, public services, rather than remain only a speech on a stage. That emphasis resonates strongly here, where our development story has always tried to translate social justice into institutions that people can actually use. In a session on secularism and consultative government, your presence is a reminder that ideologies too must remain accountable to lived reality and that disagreement can be principled without being poisonous. Shri N. Ram, we extend a very special welcome to you. In a democracy, facts are not just information, facts are a public good. And journalism at its best is a form of civic service. Kerala's consultative habit has always depended on an unusually alert public sphere. Citizens who read, question, argue, and then show up. Citizens who treat governance as a shared enterprise. Your presence honors the tradition and also challenges it to keep our debates honest, evidence based, and humane. We are delighted to have your voice as we end the summit the way a democracy should, by returning to truth. Shri Saeed Akhtar Mirza, a very warm welcome to you. Cinema at its best is democracy by another route. It teaches a society to see the lives it might otherwise walk past and to feel the consequences of choices made in distant rooms. In the state where storytelling is a public habit, from theater to film to conversations that run longer than the evening, your presence is a perfect fit for a closing session on secularism and social cohesion. You remind us that the hardest truths are often carried not by slogans, but by stories, quietly, stubbornly, memorably. Friends, as we begin, let me offer one small thought, because this session is about secularism, democracy, and consultation. Secularism is an ethic that keeps society from tearing. Democracy is a method that keeps power from hardening. And consultation is a habit that keeps government human. And when these three work together, development becomes more than just projects and percentages. It becomes a shared life. And so let us do what Kerala does best today: speak freely, listen seriously, disagree without hatred, and leave this hall with something more precious than any conclusion: clarity, courage, and a renewed commitment to the common table. With that, I welcome all of you once again to this concluding session. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I request the Honorable Minister for Finance, Sri K.N. Balagopal, to deliver the presidential address. Sir.
ബഹുമാനപ്പെട്ട മുഖ്യമന്ത്രി ഉൾപ്പെടെ ഈ വേദിയിലുള്ള വളരെ ബഹുമാനരായ അതിഥികളെ, പ്രിയമുള്ള സഹോദരി സഹോദരന്മാരെ, സുഹൃത്തുക്കളെ, ഇന്നത്തെ വിഷയം ജനാധിപത്യവും മതനിരപേക്ഷതയും ജനകീയമായ ചർച്ചകളിൽ കൂടിയുള്ള ഭരണവുമൊക്കെ ഭരണവും എന്ന വിഷയത്തെ സംബന്ധിച്ചാണ്. ഇത് സംബന്ധിച്ച് ചർച്ച ചെയ്യുന്നതിന് ഇന്ത്യയിൽ ഇന്ന് ലഭ്യമായിട്ടുള്ള ഏറ്റവും പ്രധാനപ്പെട്ട ഒരു വലിയ നിരയാണ് നമ്മുടെ സെമിനാറിൽ പങ്കെടുക്കുന്നത്. കാശ്മീർ മുതൽ കന്യാകുമാരി വരെ എന്ന പ്രയോഗം അക്ഷരാർത്ഥത്തിൽ പൂർണ്ണമാക്കിയ പങ്കാളിത്തമാണ്. വളരെ ബഹുമാനായ ശ്രീ ഫറൂഖ് അബ്ദുള്ള അദ്ദേഹം ഇവിടെ എത്തിയിട്ടുണ്ട്, ഇന്നലെ എത്തി, അപ്പോൾ ഇപ്പോൾ എത്തിച്ചേരും. കന്യാകുമാരി തമിഴ്നാട് മേഖലയിൽ നിന്ന് DMKയുടെ പ്രമുഖ നേതാവായ ശ്രീമതി കനിമൊഴി ഉൾപ്പെടെ പ്രഗത്ഭരായ ജസ്റ്റിസുമാരും പത്രപ്രവർത്തകരും രാഷ്ട്രീയ നേതാക്കന്മാരും എല്ലാം പങ്കെടുക്കുന്ന സെമിനാറാണ്. വിഷയത്തെ സംബന്ധിച്ച് വളരെ വിശദമായി അവർ ചർച്ച ചെയ്യും. മനുഷ്യൻ്റെ പങ്കാളിത്തത്തോടുകൂടിയുള്ള പുരോഗതിയും ജനാധിപത്യവും സർവോപരി സെക്യുലറിസം ഉറപ്പാക്കുന്നതിന് വേണ്ടിയുള്ള പ്രവർത്തനങ്ങളുമാണ് ഗവൺമെൻറ്റിൽ ഏറ്റവും പ്രധാനം. കേരളം അതിനെന്നും മാതൃകയായിട്ടുണ്ട്. ഈ സെമിനാർ 75ാം വർഷത്തിലേക്ക് എത്തുന്ന കേരളത്തിൻ്റെ 2031 കേരളം എങ്ങനെയായിരിക്കണം എന്നുള്ളതിനെ പറ്റിയുള്ള ചർച്ചകളാണ് സംഘടിപ്പിച്ചത്. ഞാൻ സെമിനാറിൻ്റെ വിഷയങ്ങളിലേക്ക് പോകുന്നില്ല. ഈ വിഷയം, നമ്മുടെ ഈ സെമിനാർ വളരെ സന്തോഷകരമായ അനുഭവങ്ങൾ പങ്കുവച്ച സെമിനാറാണ്. വളരെ ബഹുമാനായ ഫറൂഖ് അബ്ദുള്ളജി ഇങ്ങോട്ട് വന്നുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുകയാണ്. അദ്ദേഹത്തെ ഞാൻ ഒരിക്കൽ കൂടി ഈ വേദിയിലേക്ക് സ്വാഗതം ചെയ്യുന്നു. ഇന്ത്യയുടെ അങ്ങേ അറ്റത്തു നിന്നും നമ്മുടെ ഈ പരിപാടിയിലൂടെ എത്തിച്ചേർന്നു എന്നുള്ളത് വളരെ സന്തോഷകരമായ കാര്യമാണ്. ബഹുമാനപ്പെട്ട മുഖ്യമന്ത്രിയും മന്ത്രിമാരും പാർലമെൻറ്റ് മെമ്പർമാരും എല്ലാം ഡൽഹിയിൽ നടത്തിയ കേന്ദ്രത്തിൻ്റെ ഫിസ്ക്കൽ ഫെഡറലിസത്തിൻ്റെ സമീപനത്തെ സംബന്ധിച്ച്, കേരളത്തിന് അർഹമായ പണം കിട്ടാത്തതിനെ സംബന്ധിച്ചുള്ള പ്രക്ഷോഭ സമരത്തിൽ ഒരൊറ്റ സംസ്ഥാന ഗവൺമെൻറ്റാണ് കേന്ദ്രത്തിലെ ഗവൺമെൻറ്റിനെതിരെ അങ്ങനെ സമരം നടത്തിയത്. ആ സമരത്തിൽ ബഹുമാനായ ഫറൂഖ് അബ്ദുള്ളജി, he personally came and spoke in that agitation in Delhi. We are very happy, and once again I am saying thanks to him for his attendance there. The main objective of this seminar has to provide a platform for leading international experts, academic scholars and policy practitioners to critically and objectively assess Kerala's achievements in various development sectors and share their perspective on future development pathways. And over the past 2 days, more than 120 experts from across the world have tried to situate Kerala's development experience within contemporary national and global perspective and trends. Kerala's development trajectory is unique in several ways. It has attracted international attention for its remarkable achievements in human development despite several resource constraints compared to other states. However, it is always important to understand how the rest of the country and the world view the state's development experience. Consultation has been the hallmark of Kerala's development experience. From the very formation of the state, Kerala has upheld a distinctive tradition of consulting its people and experts while shaping its development trajectory. This conference continues that democratic and participatory legacy. It reflects our collective commitment to evidence-based policymaking and informed public reasoning. The Left Democratic Front government has consistently prioritized programs that accelerate the social and economic progress of the people of Kerala. Our social development initiatives, including those aimed at eradicating extreme poverty, have attracted global attention and have significantly elevated Kerala's to standards comparable to those of middle-income European societies. These accomplishments are not endpoints. They are milestones in an ongoing journey. This conference has provided a valuable opportunity for globally acclaimed experts and policy leaders to examine Kerala's achievements in comparison with other best-performing models worldwide. Such comparisons would enhance clarity about the pathways we must adopt in the future. The insights generated here will undoubtedly help us to articulate a sharper, forward-looking development vision for Kerala. Distinguished personalities from national and international arena attended this conference. Their willingness to observe Kerala's inclusive development journey and to contribute their knowledge and experience is thankfully acknowledged. The conference had parallel sessions covering key development sectors including economic growth with social justice and fiscal sustainability in the state. The conference also discussed strengthening cooperative institutions, fostering entrepreneurship, promoting technology growth, and advancing infrastructure development. The need to strengthen public health system with global best practices and develop nutritional security systems and was also discussed. The conference also addressed aging population challenges through elderly care policy frameworks. Mainstreaming gender and related issues were also discussed. The status of primary production in the state, climate resilience, value chains, and export potential were also discussed. Modernization of production sector was a key focus of the conference. Positioning Kerala as a knowledge hub in artificial intelligence, strengthening university industry linkage, and the startup ecosystem were also discussed in detail. Kerala's commitment to deepening democracy through strengthening decentralized governance and the need to expand consultative public policy were also important themes of the conference. The insights from the international seminar will undoubtedly be valuable inputs for identifying gaps and designing innovative program for the future. So this is the final concluding part of the seminars, and this is a very important subject, and we hope that this session will further add upon the experience of Kerala, and I hope this will be a remarkable remarkable page in the history of our development. So I once again thank you for all of the important speakers who are attending here, and hope that we can further proceed with the ideas which we are receiving from this conference for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I invite the Honorable Chief Minister of Kerala, Sri Pinarayi Vijayan, for the opening address. Sir.
Distinguished guests, respected scholars and practitioners, honored guests from across the world, and my fellow friends. വിഷൻ 2031 ഇൻ്റർനാഷണൽ കോൺഫറൻസിൻ്റെ സമാപനം കുറിച്ചുകൊണ്ടുള്ള സമ്മേളനമാണിത്. രാജ്യത്തിനകത്തും പുറത്തുമുള്ള അക്കാദമിക് വിദഗ്ധരെയും പ്രതിഭകളെയും സാങ്കേതിക വിദഗ്ധരെയും ഒരു കുടക്കീഴിൽ കൊണ്ടുവന്ന് ഇത്തരത്തിൽ ചർച്ചകൾ സംഘടിപ്പിക്കാൻ കഴിഞ്ഞതിൽ അഭിമാനവും സന്തോഷവുമുണ്ട്. ചിലർ ഈ ചർച്ച നടക്കരുതെന്ന് ആഗ്രഹിക്കുന്ന നിലയും ഉണ്ടായി. ചിലർ വരുന്നതിനെ തടയാൻ പറ്റുമെന്നൊരു ശ്രമവും ചിലർ നടത്തുന്നതായി കണ്ടു. പക്ഷെ അതൊന്നും ബാധിച്ചില്ല എന്ന് നമുക്കെല്ലാവർക്കും അറിയാം. ഏതായാലും ഇവിടെ നടന്ന ചർച്ചകൾ വലിയ തോതിൽ കേരളത്തിന് അഭിമാനം പകരുന്നതാണ്. ചർച്ചകളുടെ ആഴം കൊണ്ടും ഉരുത്തിരിഞ്ഞു വന്ന ആശയങ്ങളുടെ ദീർഘദർശിത്വം കൊണ്ടും ശ്രദ്ധേയമായ ഒന്നായി ഈ കോൺഫറൻസ് മാറിക്കഴിഞ്ഞിരിക്കുന്നു. വരുംകാലത്ത് കേരളത്തിൻ്റെ എല്ലാ തലങ്ങളിലുമുള്ള വളർച്ചയ്ക്ക് അടിത്തറയാവും ഈ കോൺഫറൻസിൽ ഉയർന്നു വന്ന ചർച്ചകളും നിർദ്ദേശങ്ങളും എന്ന കാര്യത്തിൽ സംശയമേയില്ല. ഇത്തരം സംവാദങ്ങൾ എപ്പോഴും കേരളത്തിൻ്റെ ഭാവിക്ക് മുതൽക്കൂട്ടാകും എന്ന് തന്നെയാണ് കരുതുന്നത്. ഇപ്പോൾ കേരളീയ സമൂഹത്തിന് പൊതുവെ ബോധ്യമായ ഒരു കാര്യമുണ്ട്. കേരള ചരിത്രത്തിൽ ഒരു പുതിയ അധ്യായം എഴുതി ചേർത്തുകൊണ്ടാണ് ഈ കോൺഫറൻസ് അവസാനിക്കുന്നത് എന്നതാണ് ആ ബോധ്യം. ഇന്ത്യയിലെ മറ്റ് സംസ്ഥാനങ്ങളിലും കേന്ദ്രഭരണ പ്രദേശങ്ങളിലും ലോകത്തെമ്പാടുമുള്ള വിവിധ രാജ്യങ്ങളിലുമായി വസിക്കുന്ന പ്രതിഭകളുടെ വിജ്ഞാനവും അനുഭവവും കേരളത്തിൻ്റെ ഭാവി വികസനത്തിന് ഉപയോഗിക്കാൻ വേണ്ടി ഇതിലൂടെ കഴിയുമെന്ന ബോധ്യം. സമാനതകളില്ലാത്തതും പല കാര്യങ്ങളിലും പുതുമയുള്ളതുമായ ഒരു കോൺഫറൻസാണ് ഇവിടെ നടന്നത്. വലിയ ചാരിതാർത്ഥ്യത്തോടെയാണ് ഈ സമ്മേളനത്തിൽ പങ്കെടുത്ത ഓരോരുത്തരും പിരിയുന്നത് എന്ന കാര്യം ഉറപ്പാണ്. തുടക്കത്തിൽ വിഭാവനം ചെയ്തതിനേക്കാൾ വലിയ ആശയങ്ങൾ സൃഷ്ടിക്കാൻ ഇതിന് കഴിഞ്ഞു. ഇതിൽ പങ്കെടുത്ത ഓരോരുത്തരുടെയും മനസ്സിൽ കേരളത്തെ സംബന്ധിച്ചുള്ള ധാരണ കുറച്ചുകൂടി വിപുലമായിരിക്കുന്നുവെന്നും കാണാം. കേരളീയരുടെ ആത്മവിശ്വാസത്തെ ഉയർത്താൻ നിങ്ങളുടെ സംഭാവന സഹായിക്കും. ഇത് കേരളത്തിൻ്റെ വികേന്ദ്രീകൃത ജനാധിപത്യവൽക്കരണത്തെ ഒരു പടി കൂടി മുന്നോട്ട് കൊണ്ടുപോകും. ഈ സമ്മേളനത്തിൻ്റെ നിർദ്ദേശങ്ങളിൽ തുടർ നടപടികൾ എടുക്കാൻ സംസ്ഥാന സർക്കാർ പ്രവർത്തിക്കും. ഇവയിൽ നിയമനിർമ്മാണം ആവശ്യമുള്ള കാര്യങ്ങൾ നിയമനിർമ്മാണ സഭയുടെ ശ്രദ്ധയിൽ കൊണ്ടുവരും. കൂടുതൽ ഗവേഷണവും പഠനവും ആസൂത്രണവും ആവശ്യമായ കാര്യങ്ങളിൽ വിശദവും ആധികാരികവുമായ റിപ്പോർട്ടുകൾ തയ്യാറാക്കും. നയപരമായ കാര്യങ്ങളിൽ സർക്കാർ തീരുമാനമെടുക്കുകയും ചെയ്യും. യോഗ്യമായ ആശയങ്ങളെ പ്രോജക്റ്റുകളാക്കി മാറ്റുകയും വിവിധ സർക്കാർ അർദ്ധ സർക്കാർ ഏജൻസികൾ വഴി നടപ്പിലാക്കുകയും ചെയ്യും. അങ്ങനെ ഐക്യ കേരളം പിറവികൊണ്ടതിൻ്റെ 75-ാം വർഷത്തിൽ നമ്മൾ വിഭാവനം ചെയ്ത ഒരു നവകേരളത്തിലേക്ക് എത്തിച്ചേരും. അതിൻ്റെ അടിത്തറയായി വർത്തിക്കാൻ കഴിയുന്ന ആശയങ്ങൾക്ക് ഊടും പാവും നെയ്ത ഈ സമ്മേളനത്തിൽ പങ്കെടുത്ത ഓരോരുത്തർക്കും നന്ദി അറിയിക്കട്ടെ. As we come to the close of this international conference, we are conscious that we are concluding more than a 3-day academic and policy engagement. We are bringing to completion a collective exercise in reflection, dialogue, and imagination. This was an exercise that tried to understand Kerala's past, critically assess its present, and constructively think about its future. Over the past few days, this conference has demonstrated something that lies at the heart of Kerala's public life. It is that the formulation of public policy is not a closed exercise conducted by a few, but a participatory process shaped by dialogue between the state and the society. The discussions around Vision 2031 have moved far beyond being a technical document. They have emerged as a shared framework informed by evidence, debate, and democratic consultation for Kerala as it approaches its 75th year as a state. What has been especially valuable is the diversity of voices that have shaped these conversations. There were economists, social scientists, technologists, local government representatives, civil society actors, and citizens in these conferences. This diversity reflects a deeper feature of Kerala's development experience. It is the belief that sustainable progress requires social consensus, institutional participation, and democratic legitimacy. Kerala's development journey has never been a straight line. From land reforms and investments in public education and health to social security and decentralized planning, the so called Kerala's development experience has been one of continuous renewal. It has rested on the understanding that markets alone cannot deliver social justice and that public action, democratic institutions, and collective mobilization are essential to human development. In November 2025, Kerala declared itself the first Indian state to have eliminated extreme poverty. This achievement was not the outcome of a single scheme, it was the cumulative result of decades of public investment, welfare institutions, and grassroots participation. It reaffirmed a basic principle that has guided Kerala's approach. Economic growth must be evaluated not only by aggregate numbers but by its ability to secure dignity and basic security for all. Yet, as many papers and sessions at this conference have shown, Kerala now stands at a new historical moment. The challenge before us is no longer only about expanding access to basic services. It is about transforming a high human development society into a productive, knowledge driven economy that generates quality employment, fosters innovation, and remains environmentally sustainable. All of this without abandoning its social commitments. One of the most important foundations of this transition is Kerala's long standing commitment to participatory governance. Decentralization in Kerala has not been treated as an administrative reform alone, but as a democratic project. From the People's Plan campaign of 1996 onwards, local self-government have played a central role in development planning, service delivery, and social inclusion. I take this opportunity to express my gratitude to Sri Manishankar Iyer for his generous remarks on Kerala's achievements in decentralization. His observation that Kerala stands as India's leading example of Panchayati Raj resonates deeply with our own experience. The political roots of decentralization in Kerala can be traced back to the first communist ministry under Sri E.M.S. Namboodiripad, which recognized local democracy as essential to social transformation. Decentralization in Kerala has matured over time. It has enabled communities to identify local needs, manage public resources, and participate directly in governance. This has been particularly important in sectors such as primary health care, school education, poverty alleviation, and disaster response. The experience of recent floods and landslides has once again shown how crucial empowered local governments are in moments of crisis. At the same time, we recognize that decentralization is not a finished project. Governance systems must evolve with the changing social and economic conditions. In this context, the suggestion to undertake comprehensive legislative reforms to the Kerala Municipal and Panchayati Raj Acts is one that we take seriously. Some reforms have already been incorporated over time, but more changes are necessary to strengthen administrative capacity, financial autonomy, and accountability. The urban policy document recently approved by the Cabinet proposes the constitution of a committee to recommend amendments to the Municipal Act. Similarly, the Vision 2031 document prepared by the Local Self-Government Department calls for comprehensive reforms to the Kerala Panchayati Raj Act. These initiatives reflect our commitment to ensure that decentralization remains relevant, effective, and democratic in a rapidly changing economy. Another central theme that has run through this conference is the relationship between democracy, secularism, and development. Kerala's experience reminds us that secularism is not merely a constitutional principle, but a lived social practice. It is visible in our schools, neighborhoods, workplaces, and local institutions. At a time when many societies across the world, including our own country, are witnessing growing polarization, Kerala has largely managed to preserve social harmony. This was the result of conscious political choices, inclusive public institutions, and a culture of mutual respect. As Professor Amartya Sen has reminded us, social cohesion is not a byproduct of development. It is a precondition for it. Trust between communities, confidence in institutions, and the absence of fear are essential for economic activity, innovation, and investment. Kerala's secular ethos has therefore been one of its most valuable economic assets. Protecting this ethos is a responsibility of the state and society. Development that excludes or marginalizes sections of society ultimately undermines itself. Kerala's commitment is to ensure that economic transformation strengthens rather than weakens democratic pluralism and social inclusion. Several discussions at this conference have also drawn attention to the changing nature of fiscal federalism in India. States today play an increasingly important role in delivering public services and driving development. But their fiscal space has become more constrained. Kerala's experience illustrates some of these tensions. This state has consistently mobilized a high proportion of its own revenues and maintained strong public service delivery. At the same time, changes, intergovernmental fiscal arrangements, borrowing limits, and the structure of central transfers have created new challenges. I wish to place this issue before an international audience, not in the language of confrontation, but as a matter of democratic governance. Cooperative federalism requires predictability, fairness, and respect for constitutional rules. States must have the fiscal capacity to fulfill the responsibilities entrusted to them, particularly in areas such as health, education, social protection, and infrastructure. Despite these constraints, Kerala has continued to prioritize welfare, education, and public services. Measures such as supporting students, workers, and vulnerable groups reflect a conscious effort to balance fiscal responsibility with social commitment. This balance is not easy, but it is necessary if democracy is to retain public trust. The discussions around Vision 2031 have shown that Kerala's future strategy rests on three interlinked principles: growth with quality employment, democratic participation, and social justice.
I'm glad, Honorable Chief Minister, that you called this meeting. They're thinkers. They're people who can change this nation. Not only this nation, but the world needs the change. We need to get out of terrorism into friendship. You know, I asked Indira Gandhi once. I didn't know what SARC was. I was from England. A small doctor there. What is SARC? She said, Farooq, this is to unite all our neighbors together, so that we can think together, we can decide our problems together. Where is that SARC today? Talking of Indira Gandhi or Jawaharlal Nehru is no good, because the very people who are in power today blame them for everything, forgetting that if Nehru wasn't there, this nation would never have ISRO, IITs, IIMs, and all the other atomic agencies and other major things that India developed. Only thing Nehru failed is telling people that you also owe something to the nation. Nothing is free. It's together we will have to build the nation. And I hope, Mr. Chief Minister, this conference of yours, where it thought of Kerala, will think of the nation and think how do we move not only this nation but this world from tragedies to better life. I wish you well to the people of this nation, and I wish well to the nation that I belong to, called India. You know, Vande Mataram. Why was this sung? Because the British, when there was a major famine in Bengal, took away the crops that were meant for the people. And we lost 10 lakh Bengalis because of that famine. Then this song came up against the terrorizing people. Today you should know who are terrorizing the nation. And sing this loud and with pride, so that these people who think they can suppress us and destroy the democratic India will realize that the soul of nation is alive and will remain alive and will succeed one day. God bless you all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I request the Member of Parliament, Tirumati Kanimozhi Karunanidhi, who is joining us online, to address the gathering.
thank the government of Kerala former Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir, Honorable Finance Minister K. Balinoka, former Chief Justice, Justice A.P. Shah, former General Secretary CBI Prakash, Karat, my former editor of Kanimozhi, Mr. Ram, the Chief Secretary of Kerala, Dr. Jayalalitha, Dr. Shadila Mary Joseph, Saeed Mirza, Professor B. Ramachandran, Professor G.U. Alex, and brothers and sisters and of the Kerala audience. I first apologize, Shantan, for not being there in person because of my health reasons, and I apologize for not being there in person. It is a very important topic we are looking at. I think our two states have really played a huge part in continuing to protect this nation and protect the interests of our people and the minorities and to fight for the identity of our people. Dr. Ambedkar has said clearly that religion is for man and not man for religion. And it is the duty of the state to see that religion of the country is not allowed to destroy the country. Today, people are not only destroying the country, they are also destroying the core of the religion which they claim to be protecting. Trying to destroy the diversity of this country, trying to take away the identity of the people of this country, and to create a homogenized identity for the people of this country, which they think will become very comfortable for them to control politically and to continue to be in power, is what they are looking at. Where is democracy in this country? Where is secularism in this country? Where is consultative democracy in this country? Unfortunately, when you mention consultation, the government should be prepared to listen. Does this government have ears? When we look at what is happening in Parliament today, the NOP is not allowed to speak. What is happening in Parliament today, the opposition's opinions do not matter. They do not want any debate. They do not want any discussions. Are the standing committees or the consultative committees even taken seriously? The government comes to Parliament with the only intention of using their majority to pass bills. They do not have ears They do not want to listen to anybody's opinions. They do not want to have any discussion, any deliberations in Parliament. Even the question hours today have become places and have become a time where they can praise their leader. They do not answer any questions in Parliament. None of the concerns of the parliamentarians are even addressed even with the question. So this is kind of respect for even the parliamentary process. And when your own journalist from the last day and related to journalists as president, and there's so many freedom of expression. Nobody can, unless people are allowed to say what they want. They are threatened, they are killed, they are arrested, thrown behind bars for months, for years together. Is this the kind of democracy? And the NGOs and people who throughout the world who actually monitor the democracies in countries are rating India every year lesser than what it was. Today, India is not respected as a democratic country. We are looked at as an autocracy. We are not respected and celebrated the way we used to be. So, what are we going to do about this? Powers of the states are being taken away, chipped away with every bill they bring. Every bill, the financial powers of the states are being reduced. The MG Narendra, which is now being called with a new name, PM G Ramji. Today, states are forced to share the amount which has to be paid as wages to the workers as 60-40. And the government, the union government will decide who can be given jobs and where and which district, how many people can be given jobs. So the rights of states are slowly being chipped away, one by one. And the financial rights are being challenged. At this point, what are we going to do? We have to come together, keep away our politics, civil society, political thinkers, writers. I think all the differences have to be set aside, and we have to come together to create one narrative, and that narrative is to protect India as it is and as it has to be and as our forefathers wanted it to be. And I think this initiative taken up by the government of Kerala and the Chief Minister of Kerala is a very, very important initiative, and it should not stop here. I think other states, other parties, other thinkers, civil society, and everybody has to come together and has to take it forward so that we will see the change we want to see. And thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you, Madam. I request the former Chief Justice, Delhi High Court, Justice A.P. Shah, to address the gathering. Sir.
Distinguished dignitaries on the dais and friends. It is really an honor to address this session today. As a judge, I have spent a lifetime observing the court's role in mediating these values of secularism and democracy. Today I speak to you as a citizen concerned over our slowly changing and perhaps eroding constitutional identity. While working on this speech, I tried to explore more deeply what it means to be Indian. The word reinforces the idea that Indianness is somehow a monolithic, singular identity, which it is quite opposite. India is home to Hindus, Jains, Sikhs. We also have one of the largest Muslim populations on earth, along with Christians, Buddhists, Parsis and Jews. We have always been a place of many cultures, many languages and many religions. Some of the blame lies in the colonial lens of our historiography. As the eminent linguist Dr. Devi points out in his wonderful work, Indians, colonial records sought to divide by portraying India exclusively as Hindu land and Muslims as foreign invaders. This also ignored traditions such as Jainism, Buddhism, Dravidian culture, and Adivasi history. By a reductive Hindu-Muslim binary, this ignored the far more inclusive subcontinental history. Unfortunately, even now, mainstream discourse lends to focus on the binary rather than the composite. It is also important to note that no communal line can be drawn through our cultural history. Our literature, music, and arts are so closely intertwined that various influences cannot be separated. For example, the nature of Hindu religious beliefs has been deeply influenced by Islamic values, just as poets like Kabir transcended boundaries to belong to both Ram and Allah. But even if one were to mistakenly view Indian culture as primarily Hindu, we must ask, as Amartya Sen does in his essay, Secularism and its Discontents, why should one's traditions' cultural dominance reduce the legal and political rights of everyone else? What have minorities done to lose their entitlement to fair and equal treatment? Our tradition of living together dates back millennia. Our culture has always been a marketplace for different thoughts. Our past includes Vedic traditions, but also the traditions of atheism and agnosticism, schools of philosophical thought that embodied materialism, like the Charvak and Lokayata schools, existed as early as the 6th century. 6th century BCE, around 250 BCE, Ashoka carved his rules into stone edicts, telling his people to honor the faiths of others. Centuries later, Akbar's policy of Sulh ki Kul, universal peace, gave equal respect to all religions. He knew that the state should not favor one group and must show equal concern for every citizen. We can see now, let's talk about Kerala. Here the arrival of new faiths, the first arrivals, was through friendship and trade, not war. Consider Kodungalar, an ancient gateway where the world met India, which houses Chairaman Juma Masjid, this is the oldest masjid, St. Thomas Syro Malabar Church, and the historic Kurumba Bhagavati Temple. This is a testament to our pluralism and what true secularism means to India. As V.M. Tarkunde argued, a secular state ensures that all citizens enjoy the same rights and responsibilities regardless of faith. He also warned that secular society cannot be established merely by the coercive process of law, but needs deep-rooted commitment to rationalism also. For Tarkunde, setting up a secular state is only half the battle won. The other half is preventing communalism from infecting our public institutions, a warning that feels especially prescient today. Building on this, Amartya Sen argues that we must ensure that insofar as the state has to deal with different citizens, there must be basic symmetry of treatment. This ensures no citizen feels like a second-class person because how they pray or what they eat, and that every voice, no matter how quiet, is heard. We have never been and can never become a nation defined by a single culture, language, or faith. Our inclusiveness lives in this very plurality. Yet today, a difficult question emerges. Does this constitutional framework, built for protecting, still hold firm? To understand where we stand today, consider first our constitution. Yes, it defines how the Republic of India should be governed, but it is also a social contract to hold together a vast, diverse people. The word secularism was added in the preamble only in 1976, but the spirit of secularism was already woven into the fabric of 1950 text. Articles 14 and 15 ensure that every citizen is equal before the state, equal before the law, regardless of their faith. Articles 25 to 30 guarantee the right to practice, profess, and propagate religion, while also protecting the cultural and educational rights of minorities. Article 51A, which sets out our fundamental duties, among other things, tell us to promote harmony and the spirit of common brotherhood and to value India's composite culture. There is also a concept of constitutional morality which is developed by the Supreme Court based on the certain observations made by Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar during the Constituent Assembly's debates. So, constitutional morality means that those in power must always be committed to core constitutional values such as justice, liberty, and equality, and not to public sentiments or traditional belief. From this, it emerges that our founding fathers chose a path described as principal distance, state's principal distance from the religion, whereas it is unlike in Western countries, they call it there is a wall of separation between the religion and the state. The state and religion simply do not speak to each other. The Indian state remains engaged but neutral. In terms of engagement, its terms of engagement are flexible. It intervenes only when it is principled or necessary to do so to uphold constitutional values like equality, social justice, or individual freedom. In India, the judiciary has had to test its constitutional morality on multiple occasions when the resilience of our secular identity was under threat. The first major turning point was the Babri Masjid's destruction in 1992. In the wake of this tragedy, in the landmark Bombay decision of 1994, the Supreme Court clarified that secularism is part of the basic structure of the Constitution, means it cannot be amended, it cannot be modified. It stated that religion and state must remain separate, and that the state must remain neutral in religious affairs. In other words, it reinforced the idea that political parties cannot misuse religion to gain power. Yet, even as Bombay set a standard, other judicial decisions created room for confusion, and I wish to talk to you briefly about those Supreme Court decisions which has created kind of a confusion on the very fundamental aspect of secularism. Now, the most notable among the case was Hindutva cases authored by Justice J.S. Verma in the 1990s. These cases dealt with election laws that forbid appealing to voters based on the religion. Controversially, Justice Verma equated Hindutva with Indianness and called it a way of life rather than political ideology. Please remember, Hindutva and Hinduism are completely different ideas. Savarkar wrote as many as 2 or 3 books and articles explaining why Hindutva is different from Hinduism. So, Justice Verma unfortunately equated Hindutva with Indianness. For Savarkar, Savarkar defined Hindutva, it's actually as a territorial and racial concept. His idea was, though why this land belongs to Hindus, because it's Pitru Bhumi and Matru Bhumi, as well as is a land of their origination of the religion. Whereas the Islam or Christianity, these religions born outside India, and therefore, according to Savarkar, Christians and Muslims cannot be part of this very concept of Hindutva nation. So this way of life metaphor has been used for years since to argue that certain norms are the default for all Indians. Justice Verma, in fact, regretted that his observations have been rather misconstrued, but the damage is done. One thing to take away from this is the weight that judicial decisions hold. The language used by judges can shape and even transform the political discourse of the country. So this brings us to the 2019 Ayodhya decision, which tellingly illustrates India's judicial temperament today. In one sense, the judgment was an attempt to end a 135-year-old legal saga. However, beneath the surface, there were many inconsistencies. The court admitted that the installation of idols in 1949 was a desecration, and the 1992 demolition was an egregious violation of rule of law. But the remedy did not follow these findings. The entire disputed site was awarded to the parties whose ideology fueled the destruction. In effect, the court was prioritizing the faith and belief of the majority over the rights of the minority. One silver lining about Ayodhya judgment was that the court affirmed the sanctity of the Places of Worship Act. This act, enacted in 1991, was meant to be a legislative freeze to preserve the religious character of all shrines as they stood on 15th August 1947. The only exception being the Ayodhya matter. So if it's a temple on 15th August 1947, it's a temple. If it's a masjid, it's a masjid. Or it's some Gurudwara, it will remain to be Gurudwara. So the goal of this law was to prohibit courts from entering claims based on historical grievances. However, the Supreme Court fundamentally altered this protection soon after by allowing survey of the Gyanvapi Masjid in Varanasi. Now, this is interestingly, it is believed that Justice Chandrachud wrote the majority judgment in Bhopal case, in Ayodhya case, and he himself opened this window and he said that the ascertaining the religious character of a place of worship was not barred by the Act. This created a procedural loophole, as now people could seek excavations and surveys to search for original structures. This has given birth to a hydra-headed monster of communal litigation. Civil suits have targeted the Shahi Jummah Masjid in Sambhal and the Ajmer Sharif Dargah, for example. As seen in the deadly 24 violence in Sambhal, court-ordered surveys frequently create social flashpoints. Currently, the matter is precariously poised. The Supreme Court has stayed further survey-related suits and is now hearing a challenge to the constitutionality of the Act. The consequences of such observations, because Justice Chandrachud later said that these are mere oral observations, are beyond property titles. This willingness of the judiciary to thaw a legislative freeze is a significant change in temperament. It is effectively a signal to both the state and the public that constitutional boundaries are negotiable. This also reflects the majoritarian impulse in our judiciary today. On some occasions, the state's narrative of national integrity becomes a truth that needs no evidence. At other times, court treats the faith and belief of the majority as a valid basis for legal title. By aligning with majoritarian sentiments, the judiciary is no longer a counter-majoritarian check and starts to mirror the executive's will instead. So who bears the cost? The minority, the dissenter, the outlier. Now I wish to talk about two more cases. One is hijab case and the other is Sabrimala, which is again in news because of the reference to a 9-judge bench. Take for instance the hijab case. The question pertained to the right of young women to access education without losing a part of their identity. It should have been a simple question of the right to education and to dignity. But the court went into the issues of discipline and uniformity and upheld the state's majority position. This is no marker of true secularism. In a secular democracy, a classroom would be where a child learns to live with diversity. The court saw difference as a problem to be addressed through uniformity. It must be noted that the Supreme Court is split on this decision and the final decision is awaited. The Sabrimala case offers another perspective. This historic judgment upheld women's rights but was put into court storage through a review process in 4 months after the original judgment was delivered. In both cases, hijab and Sabrimala, the court hesitated to enforce progressive rulings because they clashed with mainstream religious sentiments. It is a sobering moment for constitutional morality, as these cases effectively signal that fundamental and constitutional values are becoming secondary to majoritarian process. This is becoming evident in the language of individual judges too. Take for example, a judge of the Allahabad High Court who, besides using derogatory and vile language against minority community, declared that India must function according to the wishes of the majority. Similarly, a sitting judge of the Madras High Court also reportedly frequently used language reflective of communal biases. Elsewhere, a Karnataka High Court judge referred to a locality in Bangalore as mini Pakistan. Even if they are dismissed as casual observations, these remarks are not mere slips of the tongue. We must also consider the public spectacle that remarks and actions of the judges create. Faith is private for everybody, but the publicity given to the Ganpati Puja celebrations at the residence of the then Chief Justice of India, with the Prime Minister also present, blurs the distinction lying between the personal belief and constitutional office, as well as the separation of powers between the executive and judiciary. Justice must not only be done, it must be seen to be done by a neutral arbiter at that. For a minority litigant, the highest guardian of their rights, aligned with the majority, creates a crisis of confidence. By using the language and symbols of a Hindu India by judges, the promise of non-discrimination is broken. These courtroom shifts impact our lives in many ways. With the judiciary speaking the language of the majority, the state becomes emboldened to act outside the traditional bounds of law. Most evident, for example, you must have read about it, is the bulldozer justice. This phenomenon, where heavy machinery replaces the prosecutor and the judge, demolishing the houses of the accused, mostly Muslims, even before trial begins. While the Supreme Court might criticize this practice, the reality on the ground remains unchanged. This marks our transition from a state governed by the constitutional secular principle to one driven by assertive majoritarian executive. But it is not just a failure of the state, it also symbolizes the failure of our courts to maintain that essential principle distance. We have come, ladies and gentlemen, a long way from the Ashoka's edicts and Kodungallur's inclusive spirit to present-day realities. When the judiciary begins to speak the language of the majority, the very definition of Indianness narrows into something unrecognizable. What are we witnessing is a systemic erosion, the constitution being undone by 1,000 cuts. As Jason Stanley, he is a leading American philosopher, warns in his book on how fascism works, specific tactics are used to separate people from us and them. This is the attempt. Today it is us and them. Them is the minority, maybe Dalits or the whichever minority is there. So these tactics are used to separate people into us and them. And what is used? That there is a exploitation of a mythical past, criminalization of minorities, and anti-intellectualism. These are hallmarks of a global retreat into authoritarianism. It's not only in India, it is happening all over, in America, in several other countries. These collectively create a society vulnerable to the appeals of authoritarian leadership. In India, let me say this, in India specifically, each time a survey is ordered in defiance of the law, each time a casual slur is uttered by a judge, each time a home is demolished without a trial, one thread of the fabric of our democracy comes loose. Surely this is a warning sign of the collapse of the rule of law itself. A true democracy is not merely the rule of many. Its legitimacy is rooted in consultative government, where the minority is an active participant in the nation's progress. The courts must return to the path of constitutional morality. As Justice Chinnappa Reddy, a great former Supreme Court judge, eloquently stated, our tradition teaches tolerance, our philosophy preaches tolerance, our constitution practices tolerance. Let's not dilute that. To protect our republic, the judiciary must once again become the sentinel on the qui vive, a ever vigilant guardian against the majoritarian impulse. We have never been a nation of one culture and one religion, and by forcibly seeking to become one, we destroy the confluence that India is. We must hold the executive to account and remind our judges of their oath. If we fail, we risk becoming a democracy in name only, a secular state on paper, but a majority one in practice. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, sir. I request the former General Secretary of CPIM, Sri Prakash Karat, to address the gathering. Sir.
Distinguished speakers in this seminar and friends. As we discuss about secularism, democracy and consultative government, we need to realize that these ideas are disappearing from the political system and political practice as we have today. It is necessary to look beyond the facade of constitutional norms of secularism and democracy and see what is actually emerging in its place. Hindutva majoritarianism is what is usurping their place. If this sounds alarmist, let me explain what is happening. The secular principle is being constantly undone in all the institutions of the state. No public sphere is untouched by the anti-secular ideology. Let me cite two recent instances. The Mata Vaishno Devi Institute of Medical Excellence in Farooq Saab's state of Jammu and Kashmir. What has happened there? This institution got recognition for its medical degree by the National Medical Commission and admitted its first batch of students to the MBBS course. These were students who had cleared the NEET exam and by merit got admission. It was
become non-existent when there is hardly any debate in parliamentary forums and suppression of that debate outside parliament. Government by discussion is mirrored broadly in society by debates and discussions in the public sphere, in the universities, media, and through political activities. All this is getting suppressed or neutralized. Universities, particularly those under the central government, are being made to conform to the values of the ruling establishment. Faculty are being straitjacketed and penalized if they express dissenting or subversive views. Student unions and democratic student activities are being curbed and punished. Increasingly, the Hindutva outlook is being injected into the university campuses. Even state-run universities are sought to be infiltrated, utilizing the role of the governor as chancellors in states like Kerala, Tamil Nadu, and elsewhere. How do we meet this ongoing authoritarian Hindutva drive, which is antithetical to secular democracy and government by discussion? It is when we are able to rally citizens, ordinary people, into the fight that the struggle will be successful. The authoritarian regime, which tramples on the basic rights of people, is the one which patronizes and facilitates the loot and exploitation of the country's resources by big corporates and crony capitalists. The concentration of wealth and assets in the hands of a few, that is 1% of the top, which controls more than 40% of the country's wealth, and the deepening inequalities directly contributes to the attenuation of democracy and the material deprivation of the people. Hence, the fight for secular democracy is intertwined with the struggle of the working people to defend their livelihoods and for a better life. It is this combined struggle that the left democratic and secular forces have to unitedly wage. In this broad-based struggle, there are bright spots amidst the gloom and doom. The outpost of the anti-authoritarian forces lies here, in the place like Kerala. The state government, the LDF government in Kerala, has firmly defended secular democratic values. It has boldly opposed the union government's assaults on federalism, democracy, and secularism. Along with Kerala, the DMK government in Tamil Nadu has also taken a firm stand in defense of federalism, democracy, and secularism. Therefore, their continuous existence and example will encourage and sustain the vital struggle that we have to all wage in India. We have lost some battles, but the war is still to be won. Let all good women and men come together to take up this great endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I request the director and former editor-in-chief of the Hindu Group Publishing Private Limited, Sri N. Ram, to address the gathering. Sir.
Distinguished Chief Guest Dr. Farooq Abdullah, Honorable Ministers, other distinguished speakers. I think this has been a good discussion so far. It is situated within Vision 2031, an international conference on development and democracy. And several key issues have been flagged and addressed critically. I don't want to repeat or go over the observations made by others with which I completely agree. But today, I think it's time to take stock of where we stand with respect to defending our constitutional values, just to remind ourselves and inform those who haven't seen this. The preamble of the Indian Constitution solemnly pledges or resolves to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic, and to secure to all its citizens, first, justice, social, economic, and political. Secondly, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship. And then equality of status and of opportunity, and to promote among them all, and perhaps this is the most important value, fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual, and then later it was amended to include, and the unity and integrity of the nation. And today, it is clear from both actions and statements of the Hindutva authoritarian regime that is installed not only in New Delhi but in various other parts of India, that they honor the preamble of the Constitution, making only in its absence, by making a mockery of it in every respect. There's been an assault on the very idea of citizenship through the Constitutional Amendment Act of 2019. It was preceded by other exclusionary constitutional amendments earlier. But the idea that for the first time, religion has been brought into the picture as a marker of citizenship. And this is something that would have been inconceivable before this regime came into play. The command center of this regime, the RSS, is now 100 years old. They've been playing for the long term, and they have a constellation of affiliates, organizations working on different fronts. And they have the ruling party, which has now become a mass-based party. Freedom of speech and expression has come under assault. It's not totally extinguished. I believe there are spaces, because India is so diverse, so multilingual, multi-ethnic, multi-plural, multi-political, multi-everything, that it has not been possible so far to impose the kind of censorship that the Congress regime imposed on us in the 1970s, the mid-1970s, during the anti-people emergency. But that was short-lived, and that was a different character, but it was totally suppressed. Censorship was total. That has not happened, but in various ways, fear has been injected into the body politic and into society. And I fully agree with the comments made earlier, particularly by Dr. Farooq Abdullah, that the media, they have a large section of them have shamefully let down the people of India. They have been totally subjugated by the authoritarian regime. Of course, there are spaces, there are areas where the media are relatively free, and critical voices, oppositional voices are being fairly freely circulated or disseminated, and this is largely in the south, in the southern part of the country, in Kerala, in Tamil Nadu, in Telangana, in Karnataka, and elsewhere. There are also other parts of India where these spaces are available. But particularly distressing is the murder of journalists. It's virtually doubled during this last decade and a bit. And even worse than the murders is the immunity. And India figures as a founding and permanent member of the Club of Shame, which is called the Global Impunity Index. This is compiled by the Committee to Protect Journalists, an independent body. They do it after careful verification. These murders take place, but what the message is, they have impunity. The justice system doesn't work in favor of justice in this case. There are many other assaults on people's rights, on democratic rights, but most serious perhaps is what can be called an attempt at institutional capture. Many institutions, including constitutionally provisioned institutions like the Election Commission of India, they have come under authoritarian control, and very often they act at the behest of their political masters installed in New Delhi. It's very clear that this is happening. The enforcement agencies, the Enforcement Directorate, the Income Tax Department, the CBI, the Central Bureau of Investigation, they all acted in a manner which is indistinguishable from reflecting the interests of the ruling party. And I don't need to speak about the role of governors. I think this is perhaps the worst period when this constitutional office has been abused, making a mockery of it. This has happened in the states of Tamil Nadu, in Kerala, in West Bengal, and in Karnataka, and so on. Not much of a difference in the way they act. The words may be different, but the whole attempt is to deny states their rights. And today, the newspapers carry stories about part one of a report submitted on union-state relations. This was commissioned by the government of Tamil Nadu, and the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, Chief Minister M.K. Stalin, has an article in the Hindu and also in other. He's spoken out, it's widely reported. This is a report submitted which will be put up for public debate on this. And he, basing himself on this report, calls for a reset, a structural reset of Indian federalism. And I think this debate, after it's presented to the Legislative Assembly, it'll be uploaded on the website of the government, and we hope that this will be useful to have a debate all over the country, in Tamil Nadu, but also all over the country. I just want to make a few remarks on secularism, because today, in public discourse and in media discourse, it's quite fashionable to decry secularism as a tired, formulaic, hack concept. And even some liberal journalists and other members of a supposedly liberal intelligentsia seem to have embraced this fashion. We strongly believe, I strongly believe, and it's clear that everyone who has spoken before strongly believes that there are many things going for secularism in India. I think among them are our history, our freedom struggle, and our constitution. But very often, when Indians debate secularism at the intellectual or political level, the issue tends to get blurred or confused. The typical definition on offer in the Indian debate on secularism is Sarvadharma Samabhava, equal respect for all faiths, or Sarvadharma Sadbhava, good feelings towards all faiths. Over time, various leaders, political leaders, have offered interpretations of secularism that suggests that in the Indian context, it has a rather special, if not unique, meaning. Sometimes it's defined as religious tolerance and Catholicity of outlook. Sometimes the famous statement of Swami Vivekananda in a Chicago address of 1893 is cited as the core of Indian secularism, and that statement, that famous formulation was, "We believe not only in universal toleration, but we accept all religions as true." Such attempts at definition and clarification of a key concept in modern Indian history may have their advantages and application in particular gatherings or contexts, since they have the progressive effect of countering bigotry, intolerance, and fundamentalism in social life and communalism as a phenomenon. But intellectually and politically, I submit, they will not do as an interpretation of secularism and what it demands. To put it in a different way, Sarva Dharma Samabhava or Sadbhava is a necessary but insufficient condition for the flourishing of secularism in India. Why? Secularism as a concept must be put to work all the time, and it consists of two robust principles. The first is that people belonging to all faiths and social sections, to both sexes, are absolutely equal before the Constitution, the law, and the state. There shall be no discrimination against anyone on grounds of religion, caste, race, ethnicity, language, and gender. This is what the Constitution mandates through several provisions. The constitutional guarantee of the special rights of religious and linguistic minorities is an extension of this equality and fairness principle. The abolition of untouchability and the exceptions to the non-discrimination rule made to safeguard compensatory discrimination in favor of the scheduled castes, the scheduled tribes, and also the socially and educationally backward classes are meant as devices. However imperfect they are progressive devices, necessary devices to secure the integration of historically disadvantaged groups of people and their access to fair equality of opportunity. Secularism as the equality and fairness principle must be based on justice if it is to survive and flourish. And the unmet demand for justice in India has many dimensions: the constitutional, political, the social, the economic, gender, and so on. Revivalism, traditionalist attitudes to women, caste, and social hierarchy, belief in Varnashrama Dharma, work against secularism primarily by denying justice to the victim sections, the losers in the population. And Hindu Rashtra ideology flagrantly denies the equality, fairness, and justice principle. And we've already heard characterizations of that. But there are also extremist ideas and practices which come from minority sections. And we see that, for example, in Kerala, so we cannot forget that as all. We have to be consistent in resisting these assaults. The second principle of secularism is, do not mix up religion and politics. Thou shalt not mix up religion and politics. The state and religion are quite different, and this is honored mainly in the breach. I think it is important to clarify this concept, even though it sounds very basic, because in the present context, as I said, this has been not given the priority that it deserves, that is needed. Finally, I just want to touch on the other part, the third pillar of the discussion here, the idea of development. And this is where I think we can be proud of what Kerala and also Tamil Nadu have achieved. They have a long way to go before the vision is, the vision that is going to be defined and is being discussed becomes actual reality. But the progress made, I think, has been extremely inspiring. And we are proud that Kerala stands as India's closest approximation by far to a high human development society. It has the lowest multidimensional poverty, and it has eliminated extreme poverty, as we have read and heard again today, the lowest infant mortality rate and the lowest maternal mortality rate in the country, universal literacy, strong social protection, deep decentralization through empowered local governments. And I think Kerala compares with countries that have a much higher per capita income. And Kerala, in that sense, is a striking demonstration of the principle that if you provide opportunities, if you can take care of human development in many areas, then I think you can do extremely well, even if there are many constraints on your development. Public provisioning, social investment, and democratic decentralization can deliver very high human development even at modest income or per capita income levels. But Kerala also reveals the limits of that is why a great revolutionary thinker, the former Chief Minister E.M.S. Namboodiripad, cautioned against making too much of the Kerala model of development, having achieved it. Please remember that at one point he spoke about it. Don't romanticize it to the point that you forget that a lot needs to be done. And the purely social sector-led model, could be unemployment, a relatively narrow industrial base, and fiscal pressures. They remind us of what needs to be done. Consider the other case of Tamil Nadu, at least briefly. It represents a second pathway, one that combines strong social policy with a diversified industrial economy. It has among the best health outcomes in India, not quite Kerala's, but among the best. High education enrollment, gross enrollment ratio for higher education is about 50%, which is double what Hindi-speaking states have. A robust public distribution and welfare system, and one of India's largest manufacturing bases, automobiles, electronics, textiles, and so forth. And also leadership in renewable energy. It's interesting to note that of women employed in India, across India in the manufacturing sector, Tamil Nadu is about 40% of them. 40% of women employed in India's manufacturing sector are in Tamil Nadu, and so on. I'm just giving these examples. There are problems. There are many other problems that we can speak about when we debate this, but this shows that you don't have to wait. Kerala shows that you don't have to wait for high per capita income, a lot of development before you can open up opportunities and become a high human development state. Tamil Nadu shows that you can do both, that you can combine welfare with industrialization, although a lot needs to be done there also. So can we propose, at least for debate, that if you can combine Kerala's human development record, achievements and record, and Tamil Nadu's demonstration of the proposition that human development can be productive. Kerala needs perhaps more development of productive force, in Marxist terms, productive forces of production, and Tamil Nadu needs to look at a lot of other areas as well. If these two can be combined. At least this is a proposition, however basic, that can be debated. I think India can do very well. So with respect to development, here are two. There are other states, Telangana, in the south, Karnataka, and so on, that also have scored impressive progress in many fields, IT and so on, the new economy. And these are to be looked at, not just two states. But I think if this kind of discussion takes place, I think we can benefit from it a great deal. A lot more can be said on this subject, but given the paucity of time, the constraints, I will stop here and thank my hosts for giving me an opportunity to place these views in this seminar, which is part of an international conference. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I request the Honorable Minister for Local Self-Governments, Sri M.B. Rajesh, to kindly address the gathering. Sir.
Distinguished guests on the dais, off the dais, and my dear friends. I do not want to make a long speech here. We have heard brilliant, thought-provoking, and insightful speeches from our guests. We have heard stalwarts from politics, judiciary, and journalism. We have heard an emotional and powerful speech from Dr. Farooq Abdullah. Dr. Farooq Abdullah has always been a champion of secularism and unity and integrity of our country. He has explained us the state of our nation today. He has told us what his state has been subjected to. He has told us the atmosphere of fear, injustice, and oppression that is prevailing in our country today. I would like to tell you, sir, we express our solidarity with your struggles for justice, for upholding the integrity and unity of our country. As far as Kerala is concerned, as rightly pointed out by Mr. N. Ram, quoting the words of Comrade E.M.S. Namboothiripat, that Kerala model has its own limitations. We are aware, we have always been aware about the limitations of Kerala model and the challenges. Despite that, Kerala model has always been an alternative to the country. We have always tried to improve Kerala model. The last 10 years of our work, the LDF government in the last 10 years have continuously tried to improve the Kerala model and to overcome the challenges it has been facing. The Kerala model is deeply rooted in ideas of justice, equality, secularism, and democracy. It's not merely an economic model. The Kerala model of economic development is inseparable from secularism and democracy. For the last 10 years, when the entire country witnessed extreme levels of polarization, our priorities were different. Our topic of discussion and the point of discourse were different. It was not about mandir or masjid. It was not about polarizing topics. So our priority was how we can end extreme poverty. and we were able to achieve that. Our priority was how to transform Kerala from a total literate state to a total digital literate state. We were able to achieve that target also. And our priority was how we can transform our public education, how we can enhance the infrastructure for government schools. At a time when the entire country is witnessing closing down of government schools in the name of uneconomic schools, we in Kerala have successfully transformed our public education system, our government schools. Our priority has been to improve our public healthcare system. Kerala has shown the entire world the strength of our public healthcare system during the pandemic. And we have been able to strengthen it further. Only recently, Kerala surpassed United States in terms of neonatal mortality rate. When it is 5.61 in US, Kerala has lowered it further to 5 per 1 lakh live birth. In short, we have been able to put people's issues and people's interests at the center stage of our public discourse. It's not about religion, it's not about polarization, it's about people's issues. That has been our priority in the last 10 years. So this is what we have been trying to do in Kerala. And one more important, remarkable thing I would like to mention here. In the last 10 years, when the entire country has witnessed communal clashes, riots, and extreme levels of polarization, Kerala is the only state in the country which has not witnessed a single communal riot in the last decade. So that is why we were able to advance further. Yes, thankfully the people of Kerala has always kept BJP out of power in the states. So that is why we were able to. That is why we were able to make this much progress and economic and social development. It is not that communal forces are not present here in Kerala. They are not, it's not that they are not active. Yes, they are present in Kerala. They are working here in Kerala too, but they have not been able to come out of their hideouts. They have been isolated by the progressive sections of our society. We have been trying to uphold constitutional values. We have been trying to develop a scientific temper. When the Indian Science Congress has ceased to exist, we are going ahead with our own Science Congress in the States. We are conducting literature festivals. We are not promoting debate on topics of polarization, but we are promoting battle of ideas through literature festivals and cultural festivals. So that is why I'm saying that Kerala is an alternative, and this alternative will show the way to the entire country. This two-day international seminar, will further strengthen Kerala alternative, and I congratulate the planning board for successfully organizing this two-day international seminar. With these words, I conclude. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I request the chairperson, K.R. Narayanan National Institute of Visual Science and Arts, Shri Saeed Akhtar Mirza, to address the gathering.
Thank you. Distinguished members on the dais, friends, comrades, we are at a seminar now discussing the Kerala story, and you all know how successful it has become and been. It's a great story for our times because we are living in scoundrel times. And in our scoundrel time, there is a beacon of hope that lies today in Kerala and perhaps in Tamil Nadu. It's a story of achievements in health, education, great strides in AI technologies and human development indexes. And all this done with alleviation of poverty. I mean, what more can a state really do despite such circumstances in which it exists? It does it, it's done it. And to me, that's amazing. I'm witness to it. But I would like to define Kerala's democracy in another kind of way. I've spent a lot of time in this state and I've traveled around. And to me, this democracy was manifested when I visited several police stations during my sojourns in this state. I've also traveled all over the country, just by the way. What I noticed in Kerala, it is the only state in my country where an ordinary citizen can enter a police station without fear. That is democracy. Because he or she knows his or her rights. They know that's where they've reached. Wow. Come to Maharashtra, come to Bengal, come to UP, Bihar. Check it out. Delhi. Check it out. But in this, I now must come to a word of caution. Most of what I wanted to say has been said by the Chief Minister, Mr. Pinarayi Vijayan, a lot of it by Farooq Abdullah Sahab, a lot of it by Justice Shah, some of it by N. Ram Sahab. But I'm coming from another strain now. And what is this caution? We know the Kerala narrative, but there's another narrative which is rapidly taking root. And this narrative has no connection with objective reality, objective data, or truth. It does not hold under scientific scrutiny, and yet it is flourishing in large parts of North India, and it's nibbling at the doors for quite some time in the states of Kerala, Tamil Nadu, and the South. You all know it, it's happening. And what is this narrative? It's the narrative of hate. I must talk about hate because Kerala said despite the narrative of hate, it had its own priorities and it worked towards scientific understanding and moved towards progressive ideas and is delivered without indulging in these contentious issues of communalism. But I need to talk about communalism now. It's at your doorstep, sir. It's at your doorstep. What is this narrative of hate? And it has become an incredibly emotive and a primordial appeal. It has that primordial appeal. And what is it based on? What is this primordial appeal based on? That gets through to people. And they start listening to it. What is it? It's fundamentally a rewriting and a retelling of history. Babri Masjid is a prime example of that. Primarily that. A retelling of history, a history of a great civilization, superior people, laid low by barbarous, violent invaders. A great civilization destroyed, started by 700 years, 750 years of slavery. That's emotive. It's incredibly emotive. Rapacious people, uncivilized. It carries a lot of weight, friends. It carries a lot of weight. But as we know, it's not borne by historical data or fact. It's based on minimum data, but it carries a lot of weight. And today, till about 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, the National Security Advisor of my country, in a speech, said, "It is time for revenge." Did you know that? Shah Sahib, Mr. Doval. It's time for revenge. A revenge to reset the wrongs with a new set of rights. This, to me, is the greatest challenge of the future for both Kerala and for my country. How do we confront this divisive thesis of the insider and the outsider? How do you confront an idea that is based on a minimum of truth, minimum of fact, with no objective reality, and yet has taken a kind of mythical realism that is so hard to confront? It seems we are fighting in shadows. We're fighting shadows, darkness, and whispers and rumors. It never comes out into the sunlight. Because in the sunlight, there's another objective reality that will destroy it, because this is not the truth. But we're fighting shadows in the darkness and rumors and myths. And that is our struggle. How do we fight it? This is a narrative that we have to this is a narrative that we need to also focus on. And supporting this kind of narrative are very shady industrialists, developers, and political warlords, and bigoted charlatans and thugs masquerading as gurus and yogis. And underlying all of these is a vast, secretive organization that has taken center stage in Delhi with its supremacist ideology and has heroes like Hitler and Mussolini. This is where we're at today. And this organization speaks in several tongues, not one tongue, several tongues. For the elite and for the upper echelons of society, it speaks of philosophy and inclusiveness, with a little dose of its distorted history, of course. That has to be there. For the middle classes, it is this history which is shoved down their throats, and religiosity, celebrating religiosity. And on the streets, it's anger, violence, and retribution. 3 languages simultaneously. It works. And this is the problem we're facing today. And I'm really grateful for having this opportunity to be able to speak. And I must commend the government of Kerala that despite these circumstances, it has achieved what it has. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. May I invite the Honorable Vice Chairperson, Kerala State Planning Board, Professor V.K. Ramachandran, to address the gathering, sir.
Chairperson, Farooq, Dr. Farooq, Abdullah Sahab, distinguished persons on the dais and friends. I'm going to speak on a theme that has come up in many of the speeches today, but also and in the introductory speech of the Chief Minister, but one that had a place in almost all the discussions in the 18 sessions yesterday. The Constitution establishes India as a union of states. And we are aware that an important condition for the full flowering of democracy in India depends on a just and equitable federal polity in India. The term cooperative federalism is often used, but what we mean is, and what is essential is, a just and equitable relationship between the union government and the states. Today, for us, for a government such as the government of Kerala, the union government and central policy challenge such a just and equitable society in, I believe, 3 important ways. The first challenge, the first line of attack, if you like, on this equitable, on equitable and just relationship is in the sphere of finance. States, the fact is today, states in India have neither the resources to fulfill the tasks assigned to them by the Constitution, nor the autonomy to raise such resources independently. Even a cursory glance at the state list in the 7th schedule reveals its critical responsibilities: enhancing human development, education, health, promoting income growth and livelihoods, protecting and sustaining the environment. These are all entrusted to the state. However, while these major nation-building tasks fall within the state's domain, the financial resources to undertake them are substantially controlled by the union. There is thus a significant asymmetry in India's federal system. This word asymmetry is an interesting word. I've seen it used in the writing of Professor Chandrasekhar, who joined us, in the writing also of the Chief Minister in one of his journalistic articles in the Hindu. The constitutional mechanism to ameliorate, to right that asymmetry was the Finance Commission. And today I will not go into the detail, but actually in yesterday's finance session, Mr. Balagopal characterized it very well. The Finance Commission itself has become an instrument to fight for the interests of the center against the state. It's not an institution which seeks a fair and just and equitable solution. Very recently, we had a conclave of finance ministers. The finance ministers unanimously recommended that 50% of resources be devolved to the states. It remained at 40%, and of course, all the revenue deficit grants were dismissed as being disincentivizing. the wise man from Yale and his colleagues, that their view is that these disincentivizing nonsense, of course. But we cannot, from an institution which was to ensure a just and equitable solution, it has become a partisan institution. Let me not go into that. Let me not also go into problems of GST, which again has been discriminatory. But what I'd like to say is that now we've reached a stage where the central transfers to states are mostly conditional, especially under centrally sponsored schemes. The fact of the matter today is that the Finance Commission, which itself has been politicized by the party at the center, accounts for only 20% of central transfers to the states. No less than 80% of central transfers to the states today are discretionary. Why should we have centrally sponsored schemes? The left has asked many years ago, more than a decade ago, for why should we have them at all? Their very constitution, I mean, their very establishment was inconsistent with the with a truly federal structure. They cover a wide range of issues: poverty alleviation, rural development, primary sector growth, unemployment reduction, social. Now, these are not one-size-fits-all areas of the economy. These are areas of the economy that a state government should be solving, should be finding ways of solving, and indeed, when they have the power to do so and the money to do so, indeed do solve. These schemes are arbitrary. They're imposed on the state. Sometimes they're withdrawn from the state. And now we have yet another aspect of these, is that centrally sponsored scheme occupies state space in states like Kerala and even Tamil Nadu, where you have established, say, a primary health system. Over the years, through real toil by the doctors and administrators and health workers. Now the center walks in and says that this is our scheme. If you want any more money for this, you have to brand it in our colors. You have to put a photograph of the leader on these. Can you imagine in Kerala or Tamil Nadu, with our tradition of public health, having to brand it with the central government's logos? The public distribution system in Kerala now, if you want, even Tamil Nadu, which is a much more financially, which held out for a long time. Even states cannot do without, given the volume of central transfers now and the paucity of funds given to states. You cannot do without these funds. You have to accept them if you want to maintain your health and education systems. And now it's going to come to primary education as well, as you're probably aware. But the point is that a major weapon, a chosen line of attack, is financial. Before I leave that, I give you yet another example of this grotesque addition to India's political lexicon, the idea of a double-engine government. What is a double-engine government? You go to a state and say that you will get 5,000 crores more for irrigation if you vote for the party which is in power at the center. The opposite reverse is also true. If you don't vote for the party at the center, you will not get the money you will not get that money. Now, this is completely. What does it have to do with the idea of righting the asymmetry? You're not only intensifying the asymmetry, you're forcing the people to vote for the central government, the party of the central government, saying that you will not get the basic rights of development if you don't vote for us. Remember, you see, immediately after the 1991 election in Nicaragua, the whole it was said that the entire election was conducted with guns to the people's heads, because they were told that the economy would collapse, you'd have nothing if you actually voted back the Sandinistas. This kind of complete arbitrariness and unacceptability of the whole idea of a double-engine government should be recognized everywhere. Anyway, let me go on. The second line of attack is I believe, legislative. I'm going to take only one example, which was taken by Prakash in his presentation. Take the case of the universities. After independence, many states set up, in response to the demand for higher education, set up state universities. Many of these states, they appointed they wrote into the acts that the chancellor would be the governor. It's a symbolic post. Now, why? Because it was assumed at that time the governor would be a wise and unbiased person, one who would be interested in this kind of thing. It is not part of the statutory function of the governor. It is not envisaged. It's not a function of the Constitution. Please remember that the function of chancellorship is not a constitutional function of the governor. It was given by the state acts. Now, as the governors become less and less qualified to be chancellors of universities, as governors become far more biased and truly, in some cases, enemies of a higher education quality. We had a governor who abused senior historians, one of the greatest historians in our country, and a very important historian who was a vice chancellor of a university. A governor who's completely, unqualified to be a vice chancellor. So now, when the state legislature now seeks to change the law, in fact, to bring the different state universities act under a more uniform law, where it seeks to make the chancellor a person of some wisdom and involved with the higher education system. The governor sits on the law, sits on the act, it goes to the center, and the act itself is reversed. Now, the act itself is not allowed. It is the governors now, as a result, people completely unqualified to do so, representatives of the ruling party and its supporting organizations, they have become active instruments. Now, taken together with the fact that they and the University Grants Commission, now also dominated by these elements, they now, by virtue of their position as chancellors, have become active instruments in undermining the secular and autonomous character of higher education institutions in states such as Kerala, Tamil Nadu, and other states. This is an extremely important threat to academic freedom. Not only academic freedom, it's a communal threat to our education. And it is a threat which is going to lower the quality in all senses of higher education in the state. So the second, I could take many other examples, but the second line of attack is, I believe, administrative and legal. The third line of attack on justice and equity in our federal policy is ideological. What can we say about secularism in center-state relations? What can we say about harmonious center-state relations when the main party in power at the center, its ideology is to use the majority religion as an instrument, as the primary instrument of political mobilization? What remains of democracy when that is the principle which guides their intervention, guides their interaction with states? What is it? The destruction of the science. India is the country which, the term originated in the 19th century, but India is the country which made the term scientific temper something that's used in the world at large. And in fact, if I it's probably the only country in the world with the term scientific temper is in the constitution, right? So in such a context, we now have an assault of unscientific, and even in the universities, attempting to bring worship of goddesses into the premises of a university during university functions of one religion against the minority. I mean, what kind of this? Let me not go into that in any detail, but this assault is a very important part of day-to-day life when the central government imposes this on the states. So it's a very difficult situation. How do we respond? Well, in the first case, despite this kind of financial exclusion, financial blackmail, despite that, a state government such as Kerala tries to invest in the people, not only to strengthen and deepen our investments in human development, but to use these as a springboard for economic growth. That's the response. You present an alternative to the people of India in this way. The alternative is not as successful. The alternative is not as rich as it could have been without this kind of financial exclusion. In the case of the second, well, actually, I must say, Justice Shah would know that this idea of the royal prerogative to reject legislation, it's been around it's borrowed from the United Kingdom, but as far as I know, it's not been used a single time in 300 years in the United Kingdom. It's used all the time in India. It's used all the time in India. Now, how do you fight this? Well, yesterday's discussion in the workers' rights session showed how in a international situation and national situation where workers' rights are under attack, Kerala has continuously passed new pro-worker legislation. That's one response, and many more suggestions came up at that session on what kind of legislation should be passed. I think in all the sessions. That's another way. And thirdly, of course, we have to fight against secularism. We create new spaces, create cultural spaces for the people, libraries, cultural festivals, theaters, playgrounds, sporting facilities. When the central ruling party tries to communalize these spaces, create democratic secular spaces. In fact, I mentioned libraries. The Chief Minister's constituency is the first one in India where every ward has a public library. So this is the kind, and it's spreading all over the state. This is the kind of spaces, and this is the kind of counter, apart from actually confronting secularism, communalism head on. This is the kind of response that does take place in the state against the ideological offensive. So these are the three sort of main strikes, I believe, against a just and equitable federal polity: the financial, the legislative, and thirdly, the ideological. The government of Kerala has sought in all these spheres to present an alternative before the people of India. And I think that this conference will help, will enrich our experience and bring together many more and many new ideas for making this alternative path a real weapon in the hands of the people of Kerala and India. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I invite the Principal Secretary, Planning and Economic Affairs Department, and the Member Secretary, Kerala State Planning Board, Dr. Sharmila Mary Joseph, IAS, to present a summary of the thematic sessions.
Honorable Finance Minister Sri K.N. Balagopal, who is chairing this session, Dr. Farooq Abdullah, former Chief Minister, Jammu and Kashmir, Justice A.P. Shah, former Chief Justice, Delhi High Court, Sri Prakash Karat, Sri N. Ram, Sri Saeed Mirza, Professor V.K. Ramachandran, Vice Chairman, Kerala State Planning Board, Dr. J. Tilak, Chief Secretary, Government of Kerala, Professor Jiju Alex, other dignitaries in the hall, ladies and gentlemen. Today is the final day of the International Conference on Development and Democracy, being organized by the Government of Kerala in collaboration with the State Planning Board. While we presented the overall picture of the development story of the state on the first day, the conference discussed the current development accomplishments of the state under 18 broad sectoral topics yesterday. The thematic sessions were held across 9 venues, and the sessions saw the participation of about 4,000 delegates from the state, from other parts of the country, and from other countries of the world, and included 200 scheduled speakers. So the speakers presented different aspects of the topics. What had been done by the state so far? What are the national and international best practices? Are there gaps? Are there challenges? What needs to be done for filling up the gaps? What policy tweaking needs to be done? What new strategy requires to be adopted? The discussions were guided by the ministers in charge of the respective subjects and moderated by the members of the planning board. The secretary of the department summed up the discussion points and presented the action plan or the way forward. So I have been entrusted with the responsibility of presenting before this August gathering a summary of the technical sessions. I would quickly rush through the summary because we have already crossed 1 p.m. So 18 sessions, the first session on modernization of agriculture, livestock and fisheries. The thematic group discussed that the sector demonstrated resilience, recovering from climate-related disruptions, registering improvements in production of milk, egg, fisheries, and agricultural crops. And the speakers acknowledged the state's long-standing support systems, cooperatives, extension networks, and farmer-oriented policies, which provide solid institutional base. And looking ahead, the discussions focused on enhancing productivity and sustainability through climate-resilient technologies, precision farming, scientific adoption of more scientific techniques, advancement of livestock development through newer tools, modernization of fisheries, and the session felt that these opportunities could consolidate our strengths in food security, value addition, and rural livelihoods. In the session on workers' rights, the speakers deliberated upon our labor-friendly development model and lauded our strong welfare institutions and emphasized our principles on worker dignity, collective bargaining, and other principles that we uphold. The session further suggested expanding these protections to address the newer and emerging forms of employment like the gig and platform workers, and ensuring the portability of welfare benefits for our guest workers, and also for strengthening workplace safety systems and other newer labor reforms as well. The session on inclusive development highlighted our inclusive social policies and the high social indicators, which provide a strong foundation for advancing a rights-based empowerment framework. The session also emphasized building on these achievements by strengthening the accessibility standards and for promoting barrier-free infrastructure and ensuring that persons with disabilities are able to actively participate in policy design. The session on digital transformation and artificial intelligence also highlighted the achievements that we have made in digital governance, in laying down the backbone for IT infrastructure, and also discussed that the state is well positioned to leverage AI, artificial intelligence, across governance, healthcare, education, and public services. The session on infrastructure for growth and modernization put special emphasis on the infrastructure expansion in our state, including that of ports, airports, our transport networks, and discussed how these are, in fact, crucial enablers of economic growth. Special reference was made to the Vilnius port and improvements in connectivity as strategic assets of the state. So this session further recommended moving towards integrated multimodal planning, expanding the logistic efficiency, and also adopting climate resilient infrastructure strategies, and also discussed newer and innovative financing models and responsible PPP frameworks to further accelerate infrastructure strengthening while maintaining sustainability. The session on democratic decentralization and local governance underscored our pioneering decentralization system, which is well recognized as an international best practice. The session further applauded the role that local governments and community participation networks helped us to eradicate extreme poverty. Further, the session suggested further strengthening of fiscal autonomy and technical capacity of our local governments to plan more effectively and to further take the fruits of development to the grassroots. The session on sports and youth affairs acknowledged our vibrant grassroots sports culture and the achievements in various sports and athletics, and highlighted the government initiatives to expand infrastructure and to promote sports participation. This session also discussed that we need to further strengthen the sports science facilities, how sports can be integrated more closely with education, and also for ensuring inclusive infrastructure for para-athletes and athletes with disability. The session on environmental sustainability and climate resilience underscored again our strong environmental awareness and conservation promotion activities, and the session emphasized forests and biodiversity as key ecological stabilizers and highlighted the importance of scientific research and coordinated environment governance. And this session, looking forward, suggested integrated climate adaptation planning and sustainable forest management and institutional coordination. The session on health and nutrition. In that session, the speakers acknowledged the robustness of our public health system and our social health indicators, which are not just the best in India, but at par with that of the most advanced countries of the world. The session again highlighted the strong base that we have established, that we have laid in primary healthcare, insurance coverage, and community-based interventions for universalizing healthcare. This session also discussed that our future priorities include scaling geriatric care as we are a fast aging society, and further strengthening palliative care for the aging population, stronger push for One Health, strengthening decentralized pandemic preparedness for emerging viral diseases, and also further strengthening protocols for managing NCDs and cancers in order to reduce morbidity, and also to further strengthen mental health programs. This session also discussed the increased requirement for increased use of artificial intelligence and other tools for digital monitoring, for strengthening the life cycle healthcare approaches that we have, and also recommended a relook at the dietary practices, while sustaining Kerala's preventive health tradition. The session on empowering the elderly recognized that the state finance minister had, introduced the elders budget for the first time. The role for in giving importance to the silver economy was highlighted, and the session suggested initiatives for integrating geriatric healthcare system with the general healthcare system, and for expanding home-based and telemedicine services, and the need for more professional caregiver training and other intergenerational programs. The session on transforming education and skills lauded our achievements in the primary and elementary school education system and the transformative initiatives that we have undertaken in the higher education system. The discussions focused on consolidating these gains by strengthening our foundational competencies, empowering teachers, integrating emerging technologies, increased adoption of AI tools, and also strengthening the programs for inclusive education, for enhancing the scope and reach of education, and also discussed how research and industry linkages have to be strengthened to make our education system more globally competitive as we are rapidly transforming into a knowledge economy. The next session on financing development for people highlighted that our social development achievements have been acknowledged as a result of sustained public investment. But the session also noted evolving fiscal pressures due to demographic changes and economic shifts. And the session recommended strengthening of tax efficiency. The session also recommended exploring the need for innovative revenue mechanisms, for improving our statistical systems, for prioritizing productive capital investment. The session further reaffirmed welfare spending as a development asset rather than a burden, while emphasizing long-term fiscal sustainability alongside social commitments. There was a session on scientific management of energy and water resources, and in this session, Kerala's ecological sensitivity and water energy interdependence was described as needing integrated resource management, and future directions that this session suggested included basin level planning, modernization of irrigation systems, revival of local water bodies, and the session also further emphasized the need for adopting evidence-based and technology-driven governance to ensure sustainable use of resources. There was a session on cultural development, heritage, and tourism, and this session highlighted our rich cultural heritage and our responsible tourism and community-based tourism models. The session also highlighted our initiatives for heritage conservation, promotion of Ayurveda, and other steps that we have taken which have helped position our state as a distinctive destination. So this session suggested further expanding heritage circuits, archaeological sites, promotion of experiential tourism, and also the fact that tourism growth has to remain culture-led, ensuring preservation of identity alongside economic benefits. The session on cooperation for economic development recognized the strength of our cooperative movement, spanning dairy, credit, and community enterprises as cornerstones of inclusive economic development. This session recommended future steps like reforms in the governance of the cooperative system, digital transformation, value addition, and global collaboration. The sessions on social empowerment and the session on development with gender justice again highlighted our social reform legacy and our remarkable achievements in the social and human development sectors. This session, however, emphasized the need to deepen equality by addressing, some care disparities in certain areas, and also the need for further strengthening women's economic rights, the need for safeguarding tribal autonomy, and also to ensure that the gender justice needs to be transitioned towards more women-led development, and also the need for further strengthening institutional-based mechanisms against gender-based violence and other related issues. This session also discussed the inclusion of transgender persons in healthcare, and the policy frameworks that we already have were also highlighted. The session on enterprise, technology, and innovation focused on our expanding startup ecosystem, the growth of the IT sector, and our other innovation initiatives. And this session highlighted that these are promising foundations for a knowledge-driven economy. The session emphasized scaling this further through further investment in advanced sectors like AI, biotechnology, semiconductors, and other newer technological innovations. So across all thematic sessions, the conference conveyed a consistent message: Kerala's development model rooted in social justice, human development, and democratic governance. And the recommendations collectively reflect an effort to build on our established strengths and to prepare the state for emerging demographic, economic, and climate challenges. And coming to today's session on democracy and secularism reiterated our strong democratic foundations, strong participatory governance, and strong institutions, and highlighted that consultation is the bedrock of our governance system. So this conference, today's conference specifically, today's sessions, reaffirmed our faith in the trinity of dialogue, democracy, and development. So Vision 2031 Conclave therefore emerges as a strategic continuation of Kerala's long-standing commitment to inclusive, sustainable, and people-centered development with dialogue, democracy, and development as the trinity guiding the state and its institutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. I request Professor Jiju PLX, Member Kerala State Planning Board, and the convener of the seminars committee to propose the vote of thanks.
Honorable Chair, Minister for Finance, distinguished speakers, delegates, and dear friends. As we conclude Vision 2031, the international conference, we stand here with great satisfaction. This international conference is also the culmination of a series of Vision 2031 seminars conducted by various departments since August 2025. And this conference, conducted by the State Planning Board, consolidates the proposals of the department level seminars. So since there has been a very comprehensive summary of the deliberations, I straightaway move on to my responsibility. It is a proud privilege to propose the vote of thanks at this valedictory session with great satisfaction. At the outset, I express our deepest gratitude to the Honorable Chief Minister, Shri Pinarayi Vijayan, who conceived the very idea of this international conference and supported us throughout the course of this program. And his vision of future Kerala and his leadership continue to provide direction and confidence to Kerala's developmental journey. We are also thankful to Honorable Minister for Finance, Sri K.N. Balagopal, who presided over today's session and offered a thoughtful presidential address. He has been quite encouraging right from the beginning. Also express our sincere gratitude to Sri M.B. Rajesh, Minister for Local Self-Government Institutions and Excise. Our heartfelt gratitude goes to all our distinguished speakers who accepted our invitation to participate in this great conference. We thank Dr. Farooq Abdullah, the towering leader who champions the causes of democracy, secularism, and federalism, for reminding us of the importance of remaining united as a nation. I express our gratitude to Srimati Kanimozhi for thoughtfully reflecting on the declining space of consultative democracy in the country. Justice A.P. Shah, as we all know, is an eminent jurist whose contributions to constitutional law and civil liberties have strengthened India's democratic framework. Thank you, sir, for being part of this conference and speaking to us. Shri Prakash Karat, who is known to all of us here as a leader and for his active engagement with questions of secularism, social justice, democracy, etc. He came out with a very thoughtful speech on these subjects. Thank you, Shri Prakash Karat, for being with us. We express our sincere gratitude to Shri N. Ram, distinguished journalist and former editor-in-chief of The Hindu, whose lifelong commitment to ethical journalism and public reason has enriched the national discourse on democracy, Thank you, sir, for being part of this conference. And our beloved Shri Saeed Akhtar Mirza, who is also the chairman of the K.R. Narayan Institute of Visual Science and Arts, whose works, in fact, his films, have reflected deep social insight and commitment to progressive values. He has been with us. Thank you, sir, for being with us. And each of these speakers brought depth, conviction, and clarity to the themes of secularism, democracy, and public consultation. Their words have reminded us about constitutional values, social justice, and inclusive dialogue. We are equally grateful to Professor V.K. Ramachandran, Vice Chairperson of the State Planning Board, for his brilliant speech today and also for being part of the entire conference. He was this guiding spirit of this conference. And he was the person who came up with this remarkable lineup of renowned speakers and pointed towards the roads ahead, what is going to happen as a consequence of this conference. And my sincere thanks to, maybe he's our leader, but still we thank Professor V.K. Ramachandran, Vice Chairperson of the State Planning Board. My sincere thanks to Dr. A. Jayatilak, IAS, Chief Secretary to the Government of Kerala, who has been the guiding spirit of this conference. In fact, he has been instrumental in shaping up the program, the order of speakers, and also the modus operandi of the entire conference. We are so thankful to you, and he had given us timely instructions and guidance at every level and every point of decision making. We express our sincere gratitude to Dr. Sharmila Mary Joseph, IAS, Member Secretary, Kerala State Planning Board, for presenting a comprehensive summary of the thematic sessions of Vision 2031. In fact, Dr. Sharmila joined the preparations of this conference only a few days back, but she effortlessly took over the entire leadership activities and led the program, going to the minutest details of this program from time to time. So thank you, Dr. Sharmila, for your active involvement in the whole process of conducting this program. I acknowledge with gratitude the members of the State Planning Board who made this program a grand success with their deep involvement and leadership. The committees under their leadership functioned with utmost efficiency and precision, which made this program a grand success. And we are also thankful to the top officials of the Government of Kerala, additional chief secretaries, special secretaries, heads of departments, of institutions, who have been quite helpful, who have been cooperating with us right from the beginning in bringing resource persons, in providing us other facilities. So we thank you all with great gratitude. And this program basically has been the result of hard work and commitment of the staff members of the State Planning Board and the officials of the development departments of the Government of Kerala. And they have engaged with a galaxy of experts. And they have come from across the world, and they have, without any flaw, they have managed the entire transaction, they have managed all the communications, they have managed the fleet management, they have managed everything with great precision and commitment. And we thank each one of you. And they were part of the organizing committee, and they were part of several other committees which we had formed at the State Planning Board. And also the chiefs of divisions who actually led the whole process, the officers, deputy directors, joint directors, research officers, research assistants, and officials drawn from the district planning offices, other departments, who efficiently managed the hospitality, logistics, academic aspects, publicity, finance, food, etc., etc. We are also thankful to the Director of Public Relations Department and his team who joined us in managing publicity and conducting an exhibition at the Kanimozhi Palace. And also, we have another very important person. In fact, I missed his name out. I should have read it earlier. We are deeply indebted to the OSD of the program. We had an officer on special duty who was exclusively appointed for this purpose, Dr. Arunas Nair, a young IAS officer who put all the loose ends straight and supervised different components of the program so efficiently. Thank you, Dr. Arun. And we are thankful to the director and staff members of the CEDIT who was responsible for creating the digital content and organizing the logistics of the conference, event management functions, etc., which took place at 9 different places across the city. They were all spread across the city. They did a commendable job with remarkable commitment. We are also thankful to the press and the visual media who made extensive coverage of this program. And above all, we thank all the distinguished speakers and guests who spend their time wholeheartedly, the academicians, policy experts. Civil society representatives, students, practitioners, researchers, and members of the public whose engagement, questions, and reflections brought these deliberations to life. And the most important thing is the Honorable Speaker of the Legislative Assembly of Kerala has been quite helpful, quite benevolent. In fact, he gave us all these facilities for the inaugural function as well as the valedictory function. And also he opened up the cellar here, I mean the dining space for the lunch to follow this program. So we are thankful to the entire staff of this Legislative Assembly complex, and particularly to the Speaker and his office. So we are coming to an end. As we conclude, let us remember that the Vision 2031 is not merely a conference. It was a democratic exercise for collective imagination. The insights generated here will inform policy, refine strategy, and strengthen Kerala's commitment to an inclusive, secular, and development-oriented future. With these words, I once again express my sincere gratitude to each one of you for your presence, your participation, your wisdom, and your commitment. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. That brings us to the end of the session, and we request all the participants to join us for the lunch. Thank you.